Why Accident is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez. We're here today with an amazing professional, a dedicated executive consultant serving governmental agencies transform their operations and organization towards excellence, inclusivity, and diversity. His name, Kerry Lewis Bass. Kerry, let me read your bio to our audience so that they have an introduction of who you are. Kerry L. Bass is the CEO and founder of the Potential to Reality Consulting, specializing in enterprise transformation, operational excellence, and organizational change management. With over 25 years of experience, Kerry has led and, and supported transformation efforts in government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and commercial enterprises. He is dedicated to helping organizations and societies prioritize the well being of their holders and achieve sustainable excellence. Welcome, Kerry. It is an honor to have you as a guest on my podcast.
Thank you, Maritza. The honor is all mine, and it's a pleasure being among your first guests. I look forward to being here.
I am very excited about this discussion today with you. You bring so much knowledge and experience to the plate, and the fact that you work with nonprofit and governmental agencies is an excellent way to show what diversity inclusion really means in the bigger spectrum. And Kerry, I ask my very first question to all my guests. Please tell me, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
Well, my accent is Southern Black, and it's a kind of a more formalized Southern Black than that. I do know Ebonics, but I don't speak it very often. So why it's not an accident is that was the culture that I was born into, where I was raised, and as went on, and the experiences that I've had both from growing up, education, and professional careers has led me to value it more and more. And I think that this culture allows me to be able to have a perspective that allows and has facilitated whatever measure of success that I've had.
Yes, and you are working and you have a wide spectrum of experience. And I just learned before we hit recording something very interesting about you. And you're not only a man of God, but you're ordained as well. That is beautiful, and it is brave, especially in today's society. It is an honor to have an ordained minister position, but it's also a big responsibility.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's quite frankly the way that I look at it. It is a lifetime calling of servitude, and I appreciate people expressing, honor and those kind of things. But my responsibility is to serve, and to serve by delivering the truth, and not only by word but by deed and action. And so this is another opportunity for me to do my job.
Yes, and it's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that brought us here was your part of diversity and inclusivity and corporations and different organizations, nonprofit and government. Let's start talking about what is truly um, what a company, a corporation, and a corporate and executive level, a leader's culture has to do with bringing diversity and inclusion into the workplace.
Um, I, as you and I've mentioned a couple times before, I'm a little leery of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging programs because the compartmentalizing it into a program makes it easy to not include it into the active culture of the organization. And the organization is bounded by the culture of the leader. The leader sets the culture, and it is an integral part of the culture of that individual. And so, if diversity, the appreciation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, treating everybody right, and in bringing all people into your organization and valuing that is not part of the normal culture of that individual, it's difficult to instill it into the organizations that they lead. And often it just ends up being lip service and not necessarily a real part of the organization.
Yes. So what you're saying here is that the organization does not have to stop they are and change their branding because they want to welcome diversity, the DEI program. What I'm hearing is that they have they they have to build it around what their culture is, and then probably make changes that where they need to be without having to lose their identity.
Yes. Yeah, culture is what drives the success in the whole of the systems, the value that the organization derives. And if that culture is not delivering value in the world and environment we're in, then it's the responsibility of that leader to change that. One of the things that's been really changing in this country and around the world is an increased value of diversity and the inclusion of all stakeholders in that value chain. And so, for organizations to survive and to thrive, they need to be aware and have leaders that have a true appreciation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that being embedded into the organizations that they lead.
And that is very important. You mentioned something is when a company, a corporation, a big organization, it actually doesn't matter what size they are, is thinking about putting someone in a a leadership position. They need to think about all the skills and traits that have, including how inclusive and diverse they are. Um, what do, can you can you tell us what is the problem when a leader is put in a position where there is not diverse and inclusivity?
Well, one of the things that I've heard and experienced and see a lot throughout my career is personal bias. And the fact is, everybody has bias. The question gets to be is what is the effect of your bias on what you do? And one of the areas that I've been spending a lot of time in talking about is bias, and the hottest topic around is artificial intelligence. Bias in artificial intelligence will systematize and automate the biases of those the ones that capture the data, that train those systems, and the algorithms that are driving those systems. And so the bias that the creators and the leaders are reflecting or originally had becomes even automated and moving faster. The danger of that is that it ends up that it may exclude or actively hurt some people that are not thought of adequately in that bias. One of the people that I like to quote, a young lady that is an expert in that area, is Dr. Joy Wanlamwini. She's the creator of the Algorithmic Justice League, and I encourage everybody to look up her work and her writings to talk about the dangers and the opportunities of what we should do to be able to utilize these tools.
Yeah. And you know that that was something also that I wanted to touch on today was that part of that bias of the AI. It is not set culture and is not separating the cultures, and it doesn't speak in in the it does not differences um, to it.
Right.
So when you create content, it might be only creating the content towards a specific audience that are more appealing
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
words and the ways constructed. So there are many things. Obviously, AI has been for a few years, and many people are using it for different things. But now the whole everybody in the public is using it, and GPT 3 is and then we're now, and I think it's developing, and it has to include the worldwide census of different cultures. Um, and I wonder if that is why it's very important that when you create content to make sure that it speaks your culture and core values, and make sure you make the changes that are needed, and don't post something or don't put something out there that might actually hurt your company.
I and that's why I find your title of your guest really appropriate and appealing, and particularly in that sense, your accent is not an accident, and it needs to be very intentional about the way that we capture that full blend and full spectrum of culture and language that is captured, and there's the data set that is being used for content creation in these tools. If As I mentioned, I speak Southern Black. If Southern Black is not in the large language model, it's kind of hard for it to create some content that's relevant to people that are my background.
Exactly. So what we have to do is probably create some kind of um, communication that allow us to communicate to everybody, or create and that's the thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's you don't have to create 3 pieces of content or 10 pieces of content for different people. You need to create your culture and your organization, and then be able to talk to everybody that way.
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to several leaders that are data scientists and others that are creating these new tools, and asking them, is there a technological way to fix the bias issue? And their answer is no. You fix it with culture. You put more different people in the sample, those that create the algorithms, and then it gives a better, more culturally effective solution. Ultimately, what those tools do, they decide is what is good, and what is good is what's best for those stakeholders that you're trying to reach.
Exactly, because it's taking from that is already existent.
Exactly.
Yes. So this is amazing, and even the AI has to be also incorporated in something as simple as content creation. But going back to the role of an organization and the leadership roles in an organization, the background and the culture of your 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 leaders needs to be taken care, um not taking care, taking into account when you are trying to put them in a position, a higher position, with people that they have to work in. That background does not mean only what they have done, but also what are their core values as a human being.
Exactly. I would like to talk about, I guess, one of the most the earliest examples that I have of intentional diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, I'm old enough to be one of those early children of integration. I started first grade at Andrew Jackson Elementary School. Um, and the principal, Dovanna McNabb, understood that. And so much better than I did as a first grader, but also alleviating the fears of my parents, who all of a sudden their child who was they were planning on going from kindergarten into the first grade of the neighborhood school that was African American, having to go to another school that was called Andrew Jackson, the president of the Confederacy. But Dovanna McNabb intended for integration to be a success. She had no personal experience with it because she was white. And so she did not grow up in a multiracial culture, but she understood that there was intrinsic value of all children. And she believed that if we gave all children the opportunity to succeed, then everybody would be better off. And so she started out with me. She, you know, and I kind of like to say I got picked out, uh, but she invested in me amongst all of the children and ensured that I was exposed to various cultures, other people that were beyond our socioeconomic background, great interest in science and technology. She allowed me to do things in elementary school that that elementary kids would not be able to do. I wired up the school for when I learned about Morse code, and I was saying all the teachers can use Morse code to talk to each other. Go for it. So, but that's the type of leadership and culture that needs to be available. You can go beyond your personal experience if you have a culture of believing in the value of everybody contributing in your organization and in your society, bringing that value to your stakeholders.
Exactly. And then you said something beautiful, which is when somebody is open to bring other cultures in, they do not realize, or they are realizing actually the value of that other culture that is coming in with different perspectives and different skills and different ways of doing things. And therefore, the ROI in an organization goes up because now you are selecting and doing a wider spectrum of what you were doing before.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it increases ROI.
It does. It increases success, value. Ultimately, whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to make money, you're trying to help people out, you're in the means of a not-for-profit or in government, you're serving your citizens. You have all citizens to be served, and value comes from being able to meet the needs of all of the citizens.
And it's beautiful because then you are able to bring the sustainability to the community.
Yes.
And it is also creating happiness and around the world. So one of the things that are very important, and you just mentioned part of it when you were saying when you change schools, is that DEI does not start at an organization. Diversity and inclusion and equity starts at home.
Yeah, we were just talking before we began about my family, and one of the things I do want to point out is I'm not naive, in that uh, there's a lot of racism and prejudice inside of families that gets expressed in comments and jokes and those things, but what has to happen is the willingness for adults and parents to realize that members in this family have to exist in a larger culture and a larger society. And in order to be successful in that, you have to be open to the fact that other people's culture is important to them also. And of us getting along together is important to all of us. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion begins at home. And so parents need to think about that when they're raising their children. When they're dealing with, think about the jokes that you make, the comments that you say, the things that you do. What are you creating? And I think you and I had also talked about that from the me being a Christian and the Christian ethics perspective, is that that is a direct commandment, is that we have respect for each other. And so we are denying what we say our beliefs are if we do not respect the capability and the humanness of others.
Exactly. And then there is one thing that I say, and DEI starts at home with love, because you actually do what you see do because you love them and they love you. So it starts at home with love and allows the adult to come to work and practice it with empathy.
Yes.
So therefore, going back to the leadership roles, if there is no empathy, it is very difficult to see the values and respect others when you're a leader. Um, and we're going to ruffle the feathers a little. And I think that the DEI programs need a 360 turn
Mm-hmm.
today, um, because they were based on a lot of rules, setting boundaries where you cannot put, um, like if you're from some religion, you cannot put something that defines you to be from that religion on your desk. You cannot talk about who you are at work because that will offend others. But I think that today we have to make that 180, or not 360, because then we end up in the same
Same
place.
place, right?
But 180 um, turn and say we need to allow people say who they are and value them for who they are.
Yeah, that we've captured that term diversity, equity, inclusion, DEID, but it starts with D, and that is, I think, crucial. Um, the the way that we have often done non-prejudice and integration programs is that we make everybody the same. We're not the same. Uh, and so being different is not the problem. Being trying to say that I'm better than somebody else because I'm different is the problem. Uh, you can't make somebody into what they are not. A lot of people, they joke and they may call me because of my background, and sometimes because of my accent may not be as ebonically correct as otherwise. They may call me an Oreo, meaning that I'm black on the outside and the inside. But the bottom line is, when I show up, until I say something, people see a black man. And so there's nothing that can be done to undo that. And so you have to decide before I even talk about anything, or before I say anything or interact with you, how do you feel and value about dealing with people of color? And so, unless you're open to that, nothing that I say or do makes any difference. So, we have to respect the fact that you can't make me into a non African American person in order for me to be able to fit into society. You got to accept me with all that I bring.
It reminds me of when I came here. I came to Alabama, and I the people were very welcoming, beautiful. And then today I say where are those people, and not specifically saying about the people that help us, but remember, and I want to say remember who you are, because I remember that culture of welcoming somebody new. But the fact that I blended in to the culture easily and fast, like, and probably also the same thing, Latin woman, Latinx with a white heart. Um, it says also, but I am still, you know, dance to salsa, and and eat like the inners of the animals.
Yeah. Hey, I, I'm a chitlin baby too, so I guess
So
Menudo, your perspective, right? Yeah. So
exactly. So it is like, just when you blend in doesn't change you, because what people see, what people hear, I might blend in if I don't talk, but as soon as I talk, they already know where I am, like who I am and where I am, and they get the perceptions. And then that's one of the things that we need to change in the bigger organizations. In any organization, is tune down the perceptions and allow the exploring and knowing and togetherness.
yeah,
Because I think that when you the old programs were not were not allowing people to be who they are. And
right.
that's why today we have the problem that we have, that we are creating wars at work. I am is the basic of many many of the conflicts that human resources is dealing with. But I am, and he's not, or she's not. I am. And we talked about it before. It is also important in leadership to recognize when and how you need to tell no to somebody, and then probably terminate the right person, not because he say, she say.
Yeah, prior conversation, you and I talked about that, and I was sharing an experience. I've been a people manager for a lot of the many years that I've been a leader, um, and oftentimes it's kind of interesting in that being the African American man that I am, and particularly into a situation where I'm the senior leader or the second level manager of people of color, then sometimes they make improper assumptions also. They may think that because of my being African American, that I will or the real value of what the organization is about in order to be able to support them in their likeness of my culture. I shared a story one time with you before about a young man who was complaining about his European American female manager. He's an African American man. Um, that his European American manager was my direct report, and his expectation was is that he could tell me about how racist that she was and all of the things that she was doing to make him be less successful. But when I was here, I talked to him about the objective of the value that he was supposed to be creating. It was the work that she was trying to get him to do was to create the value that he was hired to create. And so his assumption was is that I would not uphold the value creation or my job or support my manager, my direct report that comes from a different culture in order to support the culture that we both shared. And that's a problem that we need to do. One of the things that the assumption is, and often it is a case, that the assumption is that a person of a different culture, race, or different diverse background will not focus on value, and they'll focus on their prejudice. and therefore they'll make decisions on that. We need to make sure that we appreciate the diversity that people bring, but the common factor is the value of the work that we're trying to get done inside the organization.
Exactly. And then that is when you bring value, it in when a leader recognizes that, is also I will tell you not how good you are, because actually um, we're just working, and that's not, we at work is not who we are, it's just the tool that we need to survive. Right? So when a leader recognizes the value of the people that work with them, it is also needed from the other side to recognize those values from the leader,
Yes,
because the leader doesn't know it all and is not supposed to know it all. That's the team.
exactly.
So um, let's let's talk about what are those key values in that we need to implement to make an organization uh, recognize the values and be better.
Well, one of the things, and I've been in for-profit, not-for-profit technology and other types of organizations. And the common factor that I see that makes distinguishing feature is long uh, value to stakeholders. And that is the common feature that I think everybody needs to understand. First of all, and when I say stakeholders, I'm saying customers and the people that are depending on that organization, that being your fellow employees, the leadership, the owners, the funders, the stakeholders that have invested and a vested interest in that organization. And so that's the number one priority that we ought to do. And so whatever your job is, whether it's actually delivering that value directly to the customers, the clients, or those other people interacting with, or you're supporting the people that are doing it, even to the point of saying, my job is to be the janitor, and I ensure that this place is clean and secure and safe so that all of my stakeholders, my members, my team members live and work in a safe environment, safe, clean environment, so they can produce value. That's, I think, the number one common factor that a leader needs to look for is the ability and the willingness to create value from whatever it is you do.
And that's what carried. Thank you so much. And it's so true. It's just having that that heart of knowing that you belong, but at the same time making yourself belong in your heart. I belong to this company, I belong to this organization, therefore I'm going to create value to enhance the organization.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've pointed out just recently, and some writing that I've done, is that we need to be have a high level of integrity. Leader does in what that organization is about. If the organization is simply about making money, then and you behave that way, meaning that people are expendable, resources are meant to be minimized, and you extract the most work out of every resource individual that's part of the team, then you need to expect that that's the way that people, that's the culture that that organization has. And so people, when they join that organization, they don't expect to be there for, they expect to make whatever they're going to make, and they will go to wherever they can get a higher value because what their culture is, people that are involved in those type of organizations, they understand what it is. And so no matter what you say, it won't make any difference. And to come in and say we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program to bring in more folks, but really what you're about is low cost, high volume. That it makes no difference
It is
because
not.
people are going to come and go, and it's
Exactly.
really about that work ethic and that work culture.
Yes, and that is exactly the key element. Just creating a culture of belonging, value everybody, and empathy. But there are many things behind it. And then we can, like, we probably can make a whole class, a 3-month class about it because it is very important for people to understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion does not mean that you have to get along with everybody. You can still be you.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, as soon as you're respectful and as soon as you value your coworkers and your leaders, you are doing a great job. And then follow your organization's rules and be be of value to the company.
Right. Now, in using that high profit, high monetary value organization as an example, the reason why that leader even needs to pay attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion is because everybody's got some money. And so if you want to make more money, you need to be able to have your services or your products bought by everybody, whether you or not makes no difference. But if I want their money, I need to be able to respect their culture enough to reflect it back in the value that I bring in the products and services that I offer.
Exactly. So be open to everybody and
Yes,
also have an open eye for the overall behavior of your team as a leader. And
exactly.
then, exactly, and be able to raise your hand and say, this is not right. Where, you
Yeah,
know,
even though you may not like or know about a particular diverse background or not, if you have someone on your team detracting from that team being able to produce the value, it's your responsibility to do something about it as a leader.
exactly. As a leader, it's the leader's responsibility and not to be quiet about it.
Yes.
Well, this is a wonderful interview. Unfortunately, we have come to the end, and I would like you to please tell our audience how they can find you.
I'm at on LinkedIn, Kerry Bass, and also my company is Potential to Reality Consulting, and the web of the company is www.makingitreality.com, and you can find out about what we do. Also, see some of the blog posts that I put out there, and I'd be happy to connect with you and be able to talk about diversity and being able to help your organization achieve its success.
And this was an amazing conversation, Carrie, as always. Thank you so much. And to my audience, remember, you came here because you were loved. No matter the circumstances, you are loved, and we are all here to love. Thank you, and see you next.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.